Hello everybody, this is Graeme Anderson, and today I'm going to be looking at Patchwork Doodle. Now this is a roll and write game based on the very popular two-player game Patchwork. Now there have been a lot of roll and write games that have come out in the last few years, and it takes something a little different to stand out from the crowd. Well, this game uses a slightly different mechanism of rolling a die to move a token around to a new patch. Then all players have to draw that patch and try and fill up their 9x9 grid. Now I do enjoy some roll and write games, but others just seem to be repeating the same thing over and over again with slight differences. So will this one rise to the top or be cast aside like an old quilt? Let's get it to the table, see how it's played, and I'll come back for my final thoughts on Patchwork Doodle. Here's Patchwork Doodle set up. I'm just going to show one player as the game doesn't change with the player count. Each player is given a sheet and a pencil. The patch cards are shuffled and placed in the middle of the table, then deal the top 8 cards in a circle. Randomly choose a spot for the token and keep the die nearby. Now there are 10 start cards. Deal 1 to each player. They will then draw the 7 square picture on their sheet. It can be rotated or flipped any way you want. Make sure you shade in the shape, as it will make the game much easier. The game is played over 3 rounds, and each round consists of 6 turns where the die will be rolled, then all players will draw the shape the token lands on. At the end of each round, all players will score, then after the final round the player with the most points is the winner. Once everyone is done drawing their initial shape, one person will take the die and roll it. Move the token that many cards forward. The die goes from 1 to 3. Each player will now have the option to draw that shape. Make sure you always draw the outline of the shape and fill it in so you know which squares have been used. Now a few rules when drawing one of these patch cards. It does not have to touch any other patch already drawn. It must be drawn on completely empty squares so no shapes may overlap. It must be completely within your 9x9 grid. The card can be flipped or rotated freely as you wish. And once a patch is drawn, it cannot be erased on a later turn. And finally, you do not have to draw the current patch. Once all players have done drawing the patch, remove it and continue with the next turn by rolling the die and moving the token. When there are only 2 cards left, it is the end of the round and you move to scoring. Find the largest rectangle of shaded spaces on your board, and the largest square within that rectangle will score 1 point per square. Then, for each additional complete row or column, score an additional 1 point. So my sheet will score this many points. When scoring is done, move the remaining 2 cards in front of the token and deal out 6 new cards. On the final turn of the game, that is when there are 3 cards left in the 3rd round, you do not roll the die. Each player will just pick which patch they want to play, then proceed with final scoring. To get your final score, add up all your intermediate scores and subtract the number of non-shaded squares left on your board at the end, and the player with the most points is the winner. Now I do want to mention the special actions you can take at any time during the game. Each player can only use each special action once. The first is the Instead action. Instead of drawing the patch that the token is on, you can use one of the patches on either side of the token. The Single Space allows you to shade in a single square on your board. The Single Cut allows you to cut the current patch so you end up with exactly 2 pieces. You must then draw one of those 2 pieces. The cut must be in a straight line along the line between 2 squares of the patch. And the last special action is the ability to use one of the previous 3 special actions again. Each time you use a special action, cross it off so it can't be used again. And that's how you play. So let's get back to see what I thought about Patchwork Doodle. I'm going to go quickly through the theme and components. There is no theme. The idea of creating a quilt and trying to make the most beautiful one, you know what, just didn't work, but that's beside the point. It's a roll and write game. I'm not expecting a big theme from that. So what about the components? Now, as you saw from the walkthrough, the components are minimal, but typical. The card quality is decent, and I really do like that they show you the flip version of the shape in the top corner of the cards, to kind of make it easier to plan. You get 80 double-sided sheets and colored pencils. Those colored pencils, though, are not great. They were ditched after the first play of this. Definitely bring your own writing utensils for this one. So, on to the gameplay. I do like the original game of Patchwork, and I do like some roll and write games, but with so many on the market now, does this really have something different to offer? I do like the mechanisms of the card face up, so you can see the possibilities that are up for the round, so you can, plan a little bit. And the idea of the token moving around is a little different, but the rest of the game just kind of feels a little flat to me. So each time I played, people usually ended up covering, 95% or more of their board. There really doesn't seem to have that same level of, push your luck or turn angst as there is in other roll and write games. I never felt like I needed just the right die roll or just the right card flip to finish something. My choices always kind of seem to be fairly obvious. You get no extra points for not using your special abilities, so it just makes sense to use them. And you're not penalized for not drawing one of the patches, so you can easily skip a patch if it will completely mess up your previous work, or combine it with one of the special abilities to make something that does work for you. The game is pretty quick though. I've played from 1 to 5 players and the game lasts 15 minutes. And I also didn't play with anybody who disliked the game, but on the other hand, nor did anybody I played with really love the game either. When I would ask what people thought, I would get, it's okay. So would I recommend this one? I did like the main mechanism of the game of moving the token around the cards. It gave you some ability to plan, and I did enjoy putting the polynomials on my board to cover up as much as possible. And one thing that can't be overlooked is that this is a fairly straightforward game, except for maybe the scoring, so it's very easy to get to the table. Unfortunately, the rest of the game just didn't work as well. Now, I'm definitely not saying this is a bad game, and maybe if it had come out a few years ago, I would feel different and maybe rate it higher. But I just don't think it does enough to make it rise to the top as a great roll and write game. It kind of gets left in the sea of good roll and write ones. With that being said, I think this is one I would recommend you try if you are looking for a less complex roll and write game. But if you like the more involved ones that have come out recently, you can probably skip this one. So I'm giving this game a 6 out of 10. It's not a bad game, but just doesn't do enough to make it stand out against the many similar ones that have come out recently. And that's it for the moment. Until next time, thanks for watching.